Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Tony Ndoro live from Johannesburg, and in your top stories for this evening. As former President Jacob Zuma prepares to testify at the state capture inquiry, his lawyers accuse the inquiry of trying to publicly ambush and humiliate him.
After your speech, we now ask ourselves as to what did Madiba see in you which we can't see? Your speech didn't inspire confidence.
Scathing criticism from opposition parties of President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address in a heated debate in Parliament. And found after 6 years, a Cape Town family overjoyed after tracking down their mentally challenged son. Former President Jacob Zuma says the state capture inquiry is against him. He's of the view that the commission lacks impartiality. Nevertheless, Zuma's undertaken to appear over 5 days in July. Meanwhile, Zuma's attorney, Lungisani Daniel Mancha, is accusing the commission of trying to turn the public against the former president. Erin Bates reports.
In May, on the campaign trail, former President Jacob Zuma was coy.
Will you be going to the Zondo Commission, Mr. Former President?
That one I don't comment because, as you know, is an ongoing matter, and I don't think I need to comment on that commission.
Now he's undertaken to attend the state capture inquiry from 15 to 19 July.
So help me God.
Zuma's granted the wishes of the commission or, quote, whoever instructs it. He communicated his decision via a lawyer's letter on Monday.
What is this thing called state capture? State capture.
It's scathing of the commission and its chair. Zuma's lawyer, Lungisani Daniel Mancha, claims the commission is playing politics. Mancha records the following distinct impression: that you seek your own truth and to deliver our client to the commission for public display and in order to ambush and humiliate him rather than to fulfill the mandate of the commission. In a curt statement on Tuesday, the commission noted Zuma's undertaking. It did not address any claims he or his lawyer made of bias or political meddling. Erin Bates, Johannesburg.
Opposition parties have poured cold water on President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address delivered last week. They have called on him to work with the public protector and an investigation into donations made by Busasa to his presidential campaign. Annika Larson reports from Parliament.
Opposition parties have widely criticized President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address, calling it dreamy and fantastical at best.
We need a bold plan. We need the right budget, we need the right people, and most importantly, we need a plan. We need to stop debating the mandate of the Reserve Bank. It's already in the Constitution. What we need to do is get on with the business of doing.
You talk about a 10-year plan for economic growth, but we don't have 10 years. And how do we know that things will really get better and not worse? We need solutions now.
But his harshest critic was EFF leader Julius Malema, who was scathing in his words to the president.
After your speech, we now ask ourselves as to what did Madiba see in you which we can't see? Your speech didn't inspire confidence.
Maimane and Malema also asked the president to come clean in any possible malfeasance, intentional or deliberate, when it came to his presidential campaign and the donations made to it.
If you are going to come across as being a constitutional delinquent, we'll be left with no option but to engage in an impeachment process against you.
The president will reply to his critics on Wednesday at what is commonly referred to as the president's reply. Annika Larson, Parliament.
Now, a Cape Town family is crying tears of joy after their mentally challenged son, who disappeared 6 years ago, was found in Eswatini. He's scheduled to return home later this week. Leanne Jansen has the story.
Jane Daniels has spent years searching for her mentally challenged son, Denzel. It was 6 long years. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance remain sketchy, but the family says he simply vanished into thin air. At some point, Daniels had given up hope and even had a funeral for his son.
I did do a funeral without a body. And in my heart, I said to myself, no man, no man.
And a wish came true.
A docket that's been open for the past 6 years, that he's been on the missing persons list, and he was discovered in Swaziland last week on Tuesday by the Swazi police.
His mother is elated.
And I said, yes, Lord, 1,000 times thank you. Because it's a miracle how he get there. Because no, he didn't even know, nobody know how did he get there, because of a miracle. And the miracle is God. Who did protect him?
2 local police officers have offered to use their private vehicle to ensure Daniels gets home safely.
You know what does to constables? I don't know how to thank them, because they were every contact they would need, and they made my problem their problem.
Jane Daniels is not asking too many questions at this stage, focusing rather on the miracle that's at play here. She's now preparing to take the long trip to Swaziland to be reunited with her son. Leanne Jansen, Delft, Cape Town.
Rand Water says its 600 million rand upgrade is on schedule. The water utility had earlier announced a 54-hour water cut. This to install a butterfly valve to the pipeline from the Letabo to the Vereeniging pump stations. Meanwhile, the deadline is fast approaching. Ngobile Mahlala filed this report.
Rand Water says the upgrade is a response to the increasing water demand and was originally on their 2020 projections.
We have now cut the piece that should be removed so that we can slot in the valve and the welding will start. It is anticipated that we should be able to finish the welding by at least early in the morning tomorrow, and then we commission the line before 12 o'clock.
The water utility says this project will soon be followed by more maintenance to infrastructure. Singo adds the upgrade will help with future repairs so water won't have to be cut.
If we need to maintain the B11, then we decommission it and then work on the B19. If we need to work on the B19, we then decommission it and work. So it provides flexibility so that we don't get to a point where we say we can't supply water to Vereeniging.
The 54-hour deadline for Rand Water to finish its valve installation is at midday on Wednesday. And according to the water utility, it's on track to meet its target. Ngobile Mahlala, Johannesburg.
All right, stay with us here on eNews. Coming up, we'll tell you about the largest ever transportation of eastern black rhinos from Europe to Africa. And as well, you'll bring us the business news with the markets.
That's right, Tony. So we saw the rand was firmer against the US dollar this afternoon after a bit of a choppy trading session this morning. We'll find out why.
Thank you. Welcome back. Let's take a look and see what's happening business-wise with Rofio Madzena. Firstly, Denel failing to pay salaries at the end of the month. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so earlier this morning, Denel announced that it would only be able to pay its employees 85% of their salaries, unable to meet that full salary quota of monthly, of course. And this, it said, because of the fact that they've got a liquidity crisis. So if we put it into context, Denel is one of the state-owned entities, arms manufacturer, that's in about 3 billion rand of debt, 2.7 billion rand in terms of bonds, and these are all due in September this year. And it hasn't been receiving much support from the government in terms of bailouts. Let's just listen to the CEO and see what he had to say about what's currently happening and what's to come.
Now, what happened in the month of June is that we could simply not get all the funding together to pay salaries in time. This is the practicality of the situation. Of course, we profusely apologize to our staff for the late communication on this issue, But in practical terms, we get guarantees from government. We take it to the banks and the financial institutions, and they support us with the funding. Of course, we also manage our cash flow on a daily basis, and we get funds from our customers, etc. So we make a daily assessment of that situation. But the situation is quite volatile and dynamic.
So you're hearing there, quite volatile and dynamic. So he said also, he continued to explain that this is going to happen on a month-to-month basis. We're going to have to see where money comes from every single month. The minister did work on this issue during the day in Parliament, and he did announce that a lender has come and assisted Denal, and all the full salaries will be paid. But really, there's no certainty as to what we're going to see in the coming months for Denal employees. I must also mention, though, Tony, staggering that all state-owned entities that are in a bit of a rut owe about 800 billion rand in debt, which has been guaranteed by government. Devastating effects for our fiscus. Exactly.
The government issue?
That is the critical question. And I mean, the Minister, Pravin Gordhan, there of Public Enterprises, highlighting that this is a primary example of state capture.
And the markets today?
So interesting day on the markets today, Tony. We saw two big issues souring the market mood today. So we saw rising tension in the Middle East, and the China-US trade war continues to weigh on those equities. So we saw local banks and retailers being under pressure. If we take a quick look at your commodities, gold investors have been waiting for a long time for this breakout moment, and it's finally happening. Investors are piling into gold, sending the precious metal into a 6-year high, and good news, it may actually continue. So the highs are on the back of a weaker dollar. If we take a look at oil prices, they have remained above $65 a barrel, and that's obviously not the greatest of news for motorists. The rand now, the local unit, is somewhat high today, so news that the US Federal Reserve may be cutting rates as early as July has put pressure on the US dollar, Tony.
All right, any gold mines in Limpopo?
None.
Oh, sorry, Rufio. Thank you so much for the business news there. Right, let's go beyond our borders now, and we go to Rwanda, where 5 endangered eastern black rhinos will begin a new life at the Akagera National Park. This marks the largest ever transportation of the animals from Europe to Africa. 2 males and 3 females have been relocated to aid conservation efforts. The rhinos will start off in special wooden enclosures to help them adapt to their new home. They will gradually be moved to larger spaces and finally roam free in the northern section of the park, just days after changing his mind. Well, let's move on to the United States now, where we bring you this story. And just days after changing his mind, the U.S. President Donald Trump has now imposed new sanctions on the Middle Eastern nation. Trump says the sanctions will target Iran's supreme leader. Iran has responded by labeling the sanctions as idiotic. The countries also accused Trump of having permanently closed the path to diplomacy between the two nations. Now, last week, Iran aggravated the already tense standoff between the two countries when it shot down one of the United States' unmanned drones. Stay with us. Coming up after the break. Excuse me. We'll go to our weather center for your live weather update. And then after that, you can either have a green goddess or the not-so-plain Mary Jane. We'll tell you what the secret ingredient is on these pizzas, creating a stir at a local Cape Town restaurant. Time now to see what's happening weather-wise. We go to our weather center with Candice McKechnie standing by. Candice, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Tony. Well, I think you better get out your winter woolies for tomorrow. It's not going to be the most pleasant day for the Highveld. In fact, we've had this cold front sweeping over the southern part of the country today, and that's starting to head out into the Indian Ocean. Behind it, there's a strong ridging high, which of course results in lots of cloud over the northeastern parts. It also brings in the possibility of some morning light rain along the escarpments as well as the surrounding areas. Now, on Wednesday, you'll see that cloudy and cooler weather moving in over the northeastern parts of South Africa. Sunny and dry weather continues in the west, but we're expecting a bit of thundershower activity over the central and southeastern parts of South Africa. And then as we head into Wednesday evening, we'll see some fog moving in along the western coastline. The Northern Cape remains dry on Wednesday. We're expecting highs to remain in the teens over the western and southern parts. Mild though for Kimberley at a partly cloudy 23 with a windy afternoon in store. Maybe a bit of light morning rain for Hermanus and Robertson. Robertson, as well as Bredasdorp and Swellender. Another cool day is expected for the Western Cape, mostly clear for Cape Town at 19 and George at 16 degrees. In the Eastern Cape, we're expecting highs to head into the upper teens and low 20s, with up to a 40% chance of showers and thundershowers. Mild as we head towards KwaZulu-Natal, 23 for Durban and Richards Bay, 19 for Newcastle, as well as Ladysmith. Very cold as we head towards eMkhuhluweni at only 13 in the afternoon. Cloud settles in over Mpumalanga, and you'll see the chance of light morning rain for Wombela at 20. The day also starts off with some rain for Thohoyandou and Zanin, both at 20 degrees, with a cooler day in Limpopo. A maximum temperature of around 20 is forecast for northwest, with a dry day on Wednesday. In the Free State, we're expecting cold weather over the eastern parts of Bethlehem and Harrismith in the mid-teens, and you'll see the chance of thundershowers over the western and southern part of the province, with the freezing start of the day for Zastron. Cooler weather also pushes in over Gauteng, Johannesburg at only 16 degrees, with mostly cloudy weather here, and Pretoria still warming up to 19. On Thursday, we're forecasting predominantly sunny and dry weather across South Africa, with highs in the mid-20s for the Eastern Cape and KZN. A bit of evening rain moves into Cape Town ahead of a cold front on Friday, with cloudy, cold and wet weather over the western parts, and you'll see a particularly warm day for KwaZulu-Natal. That's all from the Weather Centre. Stay warm.
All right, thank you so much, Curtis, confirming that it's going to stay cold for the next couple of days. Right, a local pizza chain is saying hi to their first cannabis-infused pizza. Now, recently, Cape Town became the first city to grow medical cannabis in South Africa. And now this innovation in the food sector. Tanya Neft has more.
Freshly made dough, smothered with tomato sauce, some favorite toppings, and in it goes. Then hot out of the oven and glazed with the latest innovation, cannabis oil.
We are a pizzeria that's pushed the health boundaries, and people don't perceive a pizza to be healthy. But I think it's got qualities of it that are pretty good for you.
There are two cannabis pizzas, the Green Goddess and the not-so-plain Mary Jane, each containing just the right and legal amount of cannabis oil. And the taste?
I don't really taste anything else different, but it's just a mental thought about what is in the pizza that makes it a little bit more edgy.
Everyone's talking about cannabis oil, cannabis treatment right now, so I think it's a clever way of marketing it.
So from extra avo to chili or garlic, you can now add another interesting topping to your slice of pizza, perhaps something that could elevate your slice of life too. Tanya Neft, Cape Town.
Okay, let's recap your top stories for this evening. As former President Jacob Zuma prepares to testify at the state capture inquiry, his lawyers accuse the inquiry of trying to publicly ambush and humiliate him.
After your speech, we now ask ourselves as to what did Madiba see in you which we can't see. Your speech didn't inspire confidence.
Scathing criticism from opposition parties of President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address in a heated debate in Parliament. Okay, that's the news for you Tuesday. Thank you for watching. See you again next time. Good night.